outside of Lemon Ball, what was the most challenging thing that you had to
I'll
do?
tell you something. First of all, Lemon Ball was not challenging. That home run was real.
It
Was it?
Yeah.
Nice. That's pretty awesome.
I am a huge science fiction and specifically like fantasy, like big epic world building fantasy reader. It's like what I read, it's how I escape. It's how I turn off. And so I'm dying to get into a big epic world building project like that. So, we'll see.
That won't turn and attempt to fight, regardless of the odds.
Hope.
That's how we'll win in the end.
So this was a very surprising series because when you see post-apocalyptic television shows or movies, there's always monsters, there's always warfare, aliens, something like that. And this does not take that approach. So I wanted to ask Jessica, starting with you, did that appeal to you in coming aboard this project because it doesn't have the traditional genre type of monsters?
Absolutely. Even though I love all of that, I'm a huge end of the world fan. I'm a huge post-apocalyptic, natural disaster, all the things. But what's the scariest about this is the fact that this could actually happen. We are the monsters with the things that are in us that stop us from living our true potential, that stop us from connecting with the world, all those things. That's the monster and in our story, along with other things. And I think that it's really beautiful to watch Mother Nature be this force that she is in ours. So those are the things that connected me to it. This my love for the earth, my love for all the things that make our planet spin is what connected me.
Yeah.
And Alexander, for you, in this series, phenomenal performance, just right off the bat to let you know. That first episode is one of the, cohesively, one of the most solid performances I've seen in an hour of television in a long time. And
Alex, I live for your gratification, man. Thank you.
Awesome. And, I'm happy to say it because that was there's episodes of The Twilight Zone like that where you've got the character that's stuck on his own. You experience such a range, but I have to ask you, was it more daunting playing somebody who thinks they're the only person left in the world or convincingly playing a character that's aging 20 years when you look as young as you do?
It's a really great question. And I can't thank you enough for the compliment. I mean, I knew going into this would be the hardest thing I ever did. And Michael Wright told me that when they offered me the part, and that first episode was it was such a paradox. It was the most horrifying, emotionally grueling experience and also the most gratifying. I was more concerned about the aging as opposed to that, because there are things in that performance like that. I have to do my work, prepare, and fully embody what this character is experiencing. And randomly, my life was paralleling this story, especially as it goes on. I had the birth of my first son when my character had his first son when Emma gave birth to his first son. So all of these things were happening at the same time. So emotionally, it felt like I had this depth and this well that I could pull from when I needed, because it was so there. But in terms of the aging, the thing that there's the problem with it is that it's out of your control, because physically there are traumas that Ish experiences along the way that need to play into simple things like the way he moves, subtle things, not too much. And then it's also just with makeup and hair and these things, that's not something that I have as much control over on a daily basis, because I'm fully focused on performance. So that's always more daunting to me. But we did it successfully with Vikings, and I knew that. So I had seen it happen personally, and I'm like, we can do it again. But I do have a baby face, so I think that that definitely is something that I'm I was worried about, but I think we did it. Yeah.
And Jessica, this character Emma is such a great character, because a lot of people watch series to escape from reality, but this character in this crazy realistic potential scenario is such a human character, such a realistic character. I feel like I've known people like this. I've met characters like all of the people in this ensemble, but when you're playing this character, did you find it to be a stretch for yourself playing outside, or did it feel like this is inhabiting somebody that you would really know?
This is the closest character I've ever played to myself. This is the best opportunity I've got to explore the things that I'm passionate about on a regular basis. When you see the crystals in the show, there are crystals all over my house. When you think of how she's connected to the earth, I'm connected to the earth. So it was a chance to really play those parts of myself, but I also learned so much from her and the parts that I'm still flawed and have things to work on. And even though she's not perfect, you know, the way that she is so selfless, the way that she can just forgive and move forward, the way that she can remove armor and let people in. She sees the good in everyone first, and she sees purpose in everyone. She inspires purpose in everyone, and that's what I fell in love with in her.
And both of your characters they have differences. There's obviously a connection between the two of them, but there's differences in what they think, how they approach things, and that kind of works for the chemistry. And I think that's obviously key to this whole series. If the two of you did not work well, the series wouldn't have worked well. So Alexander, for you, I want to say, like, what was it like getting prepared? Did the two of you kind of discuss this before cameras even started rolling as how you were going to connect, or did it just kind of work?
It was pretty instantaneous. I think we both knew how important that connection was. And thank God we got Jessica, because she's just this light, and not just the heartbeat of the show, but she was the heartbeat of the set. I mean, she set such an amazing example, and we felt very safe with each other from pretty much day one. And similarly to how Ish falls in love with Emma. And what I love about this love story is there is a very real possibility that under any other circumstances, they would just walk right past each other in a grocery store. But it was because of these circumstances that not only were they put together, but they fell for each other. And akin to that experience, I felt the exact same way with Jessica. Like, I just fell more and more in love with her as a person and a friend. And I'm so grateful to have shared the screen with her.
Same.
And Jessica, I would ask, what was the most challenging, outside of Lemon Ball, what was the most challenging thing that you had to do?
I'll tell you something. First of all, Lemon Ball was not challenging. That home run was real.
Was it?
Yeah.
Nice. That's pretty awesome.
Little plug, League of Their Own. No, no, it was just the best place to work. Every single time you showed up to set, it was just a ball of energy. And it always starts at the top. I say that every set, you can tell the set by who is running it. Todd Komarnicki, Kearie Peak, like, these people just had so much heart. Everybody believed in the story so much, down to camera A, camera B. Like, every single person just was there to give and create. And, you know, when you have a lead that is walking on set every day, like, yeah, let's get it, y'all, let's go, 100%, da-da-da-da, this and that, there's this electricity that comes with him that you're like, you got to get on board, or else the train will leave you at the station. And so it was just a fun place to work, even in those intense, dramatic moments. Like, you need to be able to be in a place where you feel safe, where you can laugh, where you can feel trusted, where you can trust. And it was that space.
Being named Alexander myself and having gone through trying to come up with nicknames, was Isherwood a challenging name to try and inhabit? Because it's a big name. You got to kind of have the personality to go with it. How did it feel becoming Ish?
It's funny. It's such a random name, right? It's like,
It is.
Now I hear it everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. You say,
Ish.
but it's like you say it enough, and suddenly it's like it's not even a thing. Ish makes a lot more sense than Isherwood.
Ishy poo.
It definitely does. Yeah.
Ishy poo is
Ishy
what we
poo.
go with.
Nice. Well, the show it's unique. It's not like anything else out there. Both of you are fantastic in it. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Alex. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. So this is unique as far as post-apocalyptic series go, because there's no zombies. They don't have any, monsters or anything like that outside of obviously the human monsters. Yeah. But in joining this series, your character, when he comes in, how did you kind of find the tone to play this character? Was it in the script? Was it in the novel? How did you kind of center yourself?
I think it was in the script. Todd is a fantastic writer and created this world so well. I mean, I read the novel and I love the book, and it really sets the tone, I think, for what the story is. But I wanted to imbue him with as much kind of charm and winningness as possible, so that when the shoe drops, it really drops. And Todd was wonderful in helping me find that, and he was very collaborative and imaginative, and he was on set with us every day and always coming in to give ideas, and I really appreciated that, especially with something like this, as you said, that tonally it's really interesting, right? Because the guy he's clearly a narcissist and a sociopath and a megalomaniac and all these things, but when you meet him, and Todd said this to me, he's like, you kind of want to meet him and you want the audience to think, oh, maybe this is the guy that needs to be leading these people, right? Because he succeeded, and so that was a big thing for me, for him to, and it gave me a lot of freedom for him to say that. So I kind of got to think like, oh, okay, well, let's try and see if it works this way.
And you haven't really played a character like this before in your career. Did it give you any pause in coming in, or were you just playing this as any other character? Like you said, when the shoe drops, that's just the natural progression of things.
Yeah, I was very excited to do it. I've jokingly said to people, but I'm actually serious. Like, if I could just play like Gary Oldman-esque bad guys my whole life, I would be so happy. But no, it's a lot of fun to do, and when I first started working in television many years ago, I noticed that I was getting cast as people that at the outset you thought they were good people, and then realized that they weren't. And I don't know what that says about my face, that I have a face that people want to punch or something. But no, it's so fun to do, because it's you get to kind of play this little magic trick game with the audience, where you try to make them like you, and you try to make them think that this is a great person. So then when the shoe drops, it goes. So no, I was very excited to do that, but specifically in this story, with what you were saying about, there's no monster, there's no zombies, there's no alien that's coming in. It's the humans that are the monsters. And I think what it's asking about, if this terrible thing happened and almost all the human race was wiped out except for a small group of people, and they could start over again and do it better, right? They could do it loving each other and accepting each other, and in union with our environment, instead of just taking for our environment. Like that was very moving to me. And I'd never seen that before. I never read that before necessarily. And so to then play a guy like this, who kind of essentially represents this idea of what we see too often in our world today, right? People in power and leadership who do everything, lie and cheat and steal to get ahead, right? And leaders throughout, sadly, human history, who do things for their own gain, right? So to kind of represent that ideal and bounce against what the show's trying to do, and then ultimately lose, I think is awesome.
And what's really interesting is that the novel was obviously published so long ago, but it is so fitting with where things are today and where we can envision the future going. Did you find in kind of seeing this story and how it plays out, did that have echoes for you in terms of where society is at today?
Yeah, of course. The novel's fascinating because it was written in the late 40s, and I read something about the novel that somebody very, very cohesively put it, that it was written at a time when everyone was worried that we were all going to destroy each other with the atom bomb, right? Because that happened and technology just available. And so instead, this novel was written about this silent killer. And I think it was just fascinating. And then today, you could say the same thing, right? We feel like we are on the brink of anything happening at any moment. And I think that there's a lot of darkness in the world, and people are looking for light and for hope. And so to show this, and to show that this group of people operates and succeeds in that way, it's very, very, very awesome. And also, I think this a lot. Like, if we could pull the plug on technology, if we could pull the plug on the internet, would we and should we? It's a big question, but I tend to think we should. So for me personally, it really hits home with a lot of things that the show's talking about.
And with any cast like this, it's an ensemble. You have a bunch of characters that are all kind of gelling. You playing a character that doesn't come in at the very beginning of the story, that you have to kind of come in once some of these relationships have already been forged. Did that change your approach in working with this cast when production began? Did you kind of distance yourself, or did you kind of get in there right at the beginning?
No, I joined, they were already up and running. They were about a month into shooting, and it can be intimidating, right? Because it's a group of people that you never know. I also, when I'm coming into something like this, I don't want to step on people's toes. I want to make sure I can fall into their work patterns and their work habits. And I have to say, Alex and Jessica and everyone else made me feel so comfortable right from the beginning. They welcomed me with complete open arms and love, and they were so excited to have me and expressed that to me. And that gave me so much comfortability and freedom to then go in and do what I had to do on set, right? Because I had to be a bulldozer in these scenes, and have to give a lot of credit to them. I don't know if everyone would have allowed me to do that, and they really let me kind of come in and do that. And I was very, very grateful to both of them, because they set the tone in that way, and everyone was just so welcoming.
In the most technical sense of the genre, this is science fiction. It obviously doesn't feel like science fiction in that sense, because it's so grounded and it's realistic and it feels like it could actually happen. Is that something that's on your bucket list, to get into a big spectacle type of genre project?
Oh yeah. I mean, listen, I've been so fortunate to work in a lot of different areas, but I am a huge science fiction, and specifically like fantasy, like big epic world building fantasy reader. It's like what I read, it's how I escape. It's how I turn off. And so I'm dying to get into a big epic world building project like that. So, we'll see.
And this is a series that has a very serious tone. Like, there's a lot of stakes that are here. What was the tone like behind the scenes? Was it light? Were you guys having fun? Like, what was the feel like when the cameras weren't rolling?
Very, very, very professional. People were super ready, super prepared. And I find when that happens, then there can be lightness and fun and, joking and camaraderie. But because sometimes if people aren't prepared, they're so nervous and you kind of can't even talk to them, right? But everybody was so ready to go. Yeah, we had a great time, and it was a very, very funny group of people, and we got to just kind of sit around and laugh too, which is, those are the moments where you think like, how did I get here, and how do I get paid to do this? Because it's so much fun. But I think that's why, a lot of actors, that's why they got into acting, right? It's to like something they love to do, and I think sometimes it can become so weighed down and not that when you get to be with a group of people like this, it's a real treat.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time today. You're great in the show. Hopefully you get a Game of Thrones style role coming your way in the future, because I'd love to see you do it.
Thank you. Red Rising, that's the one I want to see.
Ooh, yes, that'd be awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Aaron.
Take care.
Everyone's dead, hon.
There's no one left.
Did you sleep through the matinee, kid? Whoever might be left is out of time.
What do you want?
I haven't seen anyone in the longest time.
My question is, how did you get this past producers and executives and people who are going to say, so you're telling a post-apocalyptic story, but there's no zombies, there's no lasers, there's no warfare. Like, Todd, this is such a powerful story, but it doesn't seem like something that a lot of studios might be willing to take a risk on. So how did you sell them on this?
Well, the old phrase is not what you know, it's who you know. So we had the great good fortune that Kearie Peak had tracked down the rights to the book, and she happened to know a guy who had a channel, who was the studio, and Michael Wright happened to have read Earth Abides as a teenager, and it was one of his favorite books of all time. So we had a warm room, and he really wanted to do it, and has been a great partner with us start to finish. Otherwise, you're right, because it doesn't have all the typical bells and whistles, and in fact inverts the narrative of what it is to be human. It actually photographs what would happen, because this zombie apocalypse and the mushroom people, and that's not happening. Okay.
Right.
I hate to break it to everybody, but That's not how the world's going to end.
And Kearie, for you, this story, it's not one that I think as many people would know by title, by name, as they should, because it was so ahead of its time, such an important work. Do you feel that there is an audience that is going to embrace this and that's going to kind of scare them into the possibility of this? Or do you think that they're going to embrace this more as just a piece of entertainment?
Well, I hope what it does is it is more of an obscure novel, except for with people who really love science fiction and old science fiction like I do. I have a love for this material, so I read as much as I can. And I hope that people take away, there's a difference between some of the themes in the book and the themes of the show. If they go back and read the book, they would take away the theoretical questions he asks, the scientific questions that he asks. But ours deal more with personal choices, moral decisions, and how to live in a world where you remove the support system of the human race. So, hope that answered your question.
Well, I think that
I mean,
what the ... for me is that, are we enough alone? Because Kearie has been talking about this so wisely, that the infrastructure we live within has done all this protection of us, certainly in the West. We're bubbled by technology and by content, and we're not asked to really do anything. Mm-hmm. He says wisely, people make our food, they paint our houses, so we're not, if we were thrown into total solitude on Mother Earth, what the hell would we do? And it's a great question, and I think it is a question that audiences will lean into.
Absolutely.
And I think that there's a lot of points in this that there are these little comments, they're not in your face, but there's these little things that I picked up on that are very telling of that. I read a book, Nuclear War, a manifesto, where it kind of talks about the scenario of what would happen play by play. There's a moment in this where Ish says, oh, another pandemic, kind of referencing the fact that we just went through one. There's the commentary in Las Vegas that, well, they're going to run out in a certain amount of time. There's all of these realistic elements to it. Did that require a lot of research to figure out how long would things last? What is going to happen if we face this based on the fact we had the COVID-19 pandemic? Todd, how did you go about researching that?
Well, we have an amazing associate producer on the show named Seth Parks, who helped both of us immensely. Yeah. And in early days during the development of it, here's what would happen. Okay, Seth, I have a scene in Las Vegas, and I need to know exactly how long the generators are going to hold out. And he would say, hold the phone, and he would go find out. So yes, if he didn't know, he'd ask someone else. We researched this like a mofo. So, yep. JoBlo.
And Kearie, for 6 episodes is not a lot of time, but it is a good amount of time to tell a solid story. When the two of you were kind of thinking about how this was all going to come together, were there ever concerns that 6 episodes was not enough? Was it too much? Where was that conversation?
Absolutely. 6 episodes was not enough. And we had originally designed it to cover the entire novel in 6 episodes, right up until we were in pre-production, starting production on the first episode. And we realized by the 6th episode, which was our finale, we couldn't get there and tell the story effectively the way we wanted to. And we were really struggling with how that 6th episode was going to go. And then Todd had a brilliant idea. And he's like, well, let's just stop the story where we originally had episode 5. Let's just stop the story there. Take the time to spread out the storylines and the content and the themes and everything else. And then we'll just have to jump to the ending, which is why you see it after episode 6. They just jump 50 years later and that chunk is cut out because we couldn't effectively communicate everything and tell the story in only 6 episodes. So we did the best we could with the biggest chunk of the book that we could.
And I think it does work. The question that I have, Todd, is Alexander Ludwig, it was more convincing seeing him 50 years later than I think it was believing that he had aged 20 years in the first part because he looks so young. Was there any challenge, because obviously you don't have a massive amount of special effects like you would in many genre stories, to convey the passage of time for that 20 years?
Yeah, it's a tricky thing, you know, with wigs and makeup and special effects. We didn't have the budget to do the classic frame by frame aging or de-aging that a feature film would have. So you do have to do things with a limp, a post mountain lion attack feeling about your body. He's such an athletic, strapping guy, and to be honest, when I wrote the character, I didn't imagine having a big athletic type of dude. I always imagined, you know, sort of a smaller person. So letting him be who he was, be physical early on and strong early on, and then take that away. And so he is, if watched closely, he is slowing down. And there's that key moment by the well where he's unable to get the drill bit in. And in Ish in his 20s would have done it like that, but now he needs the condescending help of Charlie, who's coming in and taking over. So that was the way we really leaned in to try to age him.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time. I can't wait for people to check it out. I think you nailed it with the fact people are going to be asking what if after they see this. So
Great.
Congratulations on a great project.
Hey, great questions, dude. Thank you so
Joe.
much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.